I tested positive in September 26, 2020. Yeah, 2020. Very devastating. Coming out majorly, I would say it was part of my... Right, it's a long story. I have overcome self-stigma. I have overcome the anticipated stigma. I have overcome in external stigma. And I have decided to take what looked like my weakness and turn it into a strength. Okay, so my name is Ruele Okeyo.
Friend
of God.
Friend of God.
Yes. Yes. Ruele. Please, sister, how are you? I am a sexual reproductive health rights advocate. I run a shelter for homeless and runaway queer youth. I am also, let's say, HIV champion. And also, I do create content create. I don't like that name, but yeah, we're just gonna have to stick with it. I'm a content creator. I create also messages in regards to HIV, in regards to SRH as well. I run a podcast called Sex Ed by Relations. What else? Yeah, I guess that's it.
You do a lot.
Jack of all trades.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe because the issue here we were mostly to focus on the HIV bit, maybe just briefly your work with HIV, when did you discover, how?
Well, I tested positive in September 26, 2020. Yeah, 2020. Very devastating. I'm not going to go into the sad details about it. If you want to listen to it, go to my podcast. Let me market myself, Kidago. But yeah, so, but literally my work began by educating my folks. So when I told my parents about it, and they had mixed reactions towards it, although they were very supportive, but talking to them about it and having them understand, because sometimes they would say I have AIDS, not HIV, and I have to tell them I don't have AIDS. That's something different from HIV. So that's how I basically just started out, and that's how I started the podcast. And then I started working with an organization called Y Plus Kenya, which is a network for young people living with HIV. And ever since then, I guess it's been uphill, talking about HIV, giving people the information that they need. Literally just creating awareness. Let me say creating awareness.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what made you come out it's a hard decision for someone to just accept hey, I have AIDS and
HIV.
And also, I see you, I've been watching your content even before we reached here.
Thank you.
You even take your meds.
Yeah,
even
publicly.
Publicly.
Yeah.
Why that decision?
So coming out majorly, I would say it was part of my... Right, it's a long story, but I'm just going to shorten it to make it look like what I went through. It's very, very devastating how HIV got transmitted to me. And so I used that pain into something positive. Because I started going into a place where I wanted to transmit HIV to other people. I didn't do it, I thought about it. And I knew that was not the right way for me to go about this. So I took that pain that I had and channeled it into something positive. And so by me starting to talk about it, and guys reacted, positively towards it, because I think I started out with my podcast, and I literally didn't know anything about social media at the time. So I was like, why am I even doing this? yeah, I want to create change. I want to have this positive outcome, but I do not know what I'm doing. So, I mean, let me just focus on something else. And then I got a message from someone in the Philippines, and they said about how they were struggling with HIV. And when they heard my story, they literally did not commit suicide as they wanted to commit suicide. So that message. And then I was like, Philippines, how did this person from Philippines reach me? And then so that's when I went to the stats in my podcast channel, and we need to find out it's already listened to like over 40 countries. So I was like, okay, so okay, maybe this thing can go somewhere, you know. So this message that this person from the Philippines reached out to me and told me about how his life turned around from listening to my podcast made me feel like, okay, I am doing something positive, and I would want to do more to reach more people. And with that, now I started taking my podcast seriously, trying to diversify the messages, to incorporate human rights defenders, to incorporate HIV champions, SRH champions, to just get the information out there. Because as much as we think that, oh, it's 2023, it's the digital era, everyone knows about this and that, people are still in the dark about it, and stigma still exists to date. So my work basically is trying to demystify all these notions that people have in regards to people living with HIV, trying to break the stigma, and the challenge that is people taking their medication. People don't take their meds. And so I get so many messages, someone asking me like, oh, I'm afraid of taking my medication. How can I be able to, you know, do this? How can I be as courageous as you? I'm like, I'm not that brave. So don't let my social media fool you. I am not that brave. But as if I am creating impact and someone is seeing that, at this time I had not even started doing my TikTok videos or anything. I was just like openly talking about it, my podcast, and, you know, some small posts on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But then it's reaching a number of people who would be sending me messages. And now, when people were telling me they're struggling with taking their medication, and I have to ask them a few questions like, is it because you're living with people? Family, relatives, roommates, friends? Excuse me. And they would just say, no, I'm living alone. And so if you're living alone and you can't take your meds, then what's happening? Words, I'm afraid of doing that. So I thought about it, and I decided now it's time for me to create videos on TikTok. And my friend, Doreen Mora, who was active on TikTok at the time, was like, oh, join TikTok, do this on TikTok. I'm like, I hate TikTok. I hate TikTok completely. So before I started creating content, I just had a brief background check and seeing what people are doing. And guys were creating really sad content. Like, the content was really, really sad. If people who are positive and they're creating content about them being HIV positive and they're creating sad messages, then that was sending a bad message to me, who's also living with HIV, and I'm expecting them to be like champions for it, but they're not. So trying to relate that to me taking my meds publicly created the dynamic shift, and guys actively and positively took in that advocacy method and have enrolled in clinics. You know, some have started their medication again. Some we're still in conversations with them, talking about how they are going to, you know, get initiated back into care. So I would say it's positive, and I think that's how the journey has started and how it's progressing.
Well,
Yeah.
Also adding another aspect to it, being in the queer community.
I have lost friends, some relatives who haven't talked since I came out. So stigma still exists, and till today. And I'm not going to even talk about the queer community considering today's conversation, but when we have to talk about just people living with HIV, stigma still exists. And you know how stigma exists nowadays? When someone says, you know, it's okay, I love you despite your status. It doesn't look stigmatizing, right? But it is stigmatizing. Yeah, because you have to just relate HIV to loving me. Why can't you just say I love you and finish the conversation there? Why have to say I love you despite of your HIV status? See, that makes it stigmatizing. And you know, I mean, it even goes down to people not having the information that, you know, you can't transmit HIV through small acts such as kissing. And so many guys have, I literally, I have experienced this twice with two of my partners, exes rather, where they would literally be afraid to have something small as a kiss. And I'm like, you know what, bruh, I don't have time for this, man. You still need some work that you need to do to yourself to understand, because clearly the information is, you still think that HIV can be spread through something small such as kissing. And yeah, you know, when you try to tell people that, they're like, oh yeah, I'm cool, I'm okay with it, but until you're in a room with them, then you feel what they feel. They are not okay with it. So stigma does exist. Nowadays, it's not like, oh, I can't share a cup with you, I can share a spoon with you. It's through the small acts that we think are not stigmatizing, but they really are. So it has to go into terminologies that we use. It has to go into how we relate with one another that makes things quite different. We're not going to be in the same bar or in the same level in regards to information in regards to HIV, you know. So even sometimes when intercourse is happening and you're telling someone that I am undetectable, and it has been proven by WHO that in the recent conference that happened, the IS conference, that if you're undetectable, you cannot transmit HIV to HIV negative people. Guys are still skeptical about it. I mean, we can't blame them, but it's the lack of information that people don't have. So the dynamics are still very tricky in regards to that matter per se. And those are things that me, alongside my other friends and the organizations that work towards this, are trying to fight and change and see how, you know, we can be able to get the information to everyone, you know, without so much hustle behind it. Because yeah, there is still so much notion and stigmatizing messages that people do give to people living with HIV. Yeah, I don't think I'm there yet. Because there is so much I am yet to achieve, and there's so much I'm yet to accomplish. So for me to call myself a champion, it's because of the obstacles that, you know, I have overcome. I have overcome self-stigma. I have overcome the anticipated stigma. I have overcome in external stigma. And I have decided to take what looked like my weakness and turn it into a strength. So there is still so much that I am yet to do. And I can't say I'm there yet. I'm working towards that. I haven't reached my peak yet. Yes, so every day I am still learning new things. Every day I am still struggling with new things, because as much as, yes, I'm taking my meds in public, I'm not 100% confident about that, you know, because I mean, first, you know, I have to look about, you know, the environment where I'm taking it, the questions that people ask, and there are certain days where I'm like, I just don't want people to know about this. So, but I still have to do it for the people who can't be able to even take them in their own houses, you know. So that's still a battle that I am still facing, right? And, you know, someone can go on my TikTok page and look and say, this person has made it. No, I have not. I haven't.
So,
I haven't. I haven't. You know, there are days where everything's all good, and there are days that still things I still struggle with. You know, so it's calling myself a champion is because I know I am going to achieve those things, and I know I am going to change an aspect of someone's life that needs to be changed or, you know, tackled. So we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go.
To youth living with HIV, those under treatment,
Yeah.
those taking their under care, and those maybe who are skeptical about even taking their meds. As you say, there are those even who are afraid to take their drugs that are peke yao.
Yeah.
So what's your message?
My message to the youth, please take your meds. Take your medication. Start your medication. Because acceptance doesn't come overnight. It took me so many months to accept my status. But that happened because I was regularly taking my medication, and every day it becomes easier. Every day it becomes better. And you only have yourself. You know, taking your medication, it's not the responsibility of your friend or your parent or your spouse. It is your own responsibility. And in order for us to have zero transmissions of HIV, it has to start with you. So do what you must, however you can, and just start your medication.
Thank you.
Yeah.